Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, right? It is 12:01, and we're going to try to stay on time, as always, with our items. I would like to, first of all, greet you from, I am at a crop fair, and we had an amazing participation with folks here at the crop fair in Missouri Valley, with folks from many surrounding counties, and we're going to be discussing the Farm Bill on this Zoom call, but this morning they've been talking about a lot of other items, and there's probably behind me, I'd say we have at least 40 people in the room here that are also going to be listening and participating in regards to the Farm Bill conversation. I want to give you a little bit of an overview as to what we're going to be doing today. Our first guest that will be speaking on this Zoom call. Well, first of all, I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Mindy Larson Polberg. I work for you, the Iowa Corn Growers Association. My job is government relations with Iowa Corn, and I'm pleased to be able to introduce for you our speakers today. We're going to be having, first of all, all three of them are Iowa corn leaders and farmers, and they serve on various committees for Iowa corn in relationship to the Farm Bill. Our first speaker is going to be Mark Recker. Mark Recker is a farmer, and he is a part of the National Corn Growers Association Task Force and committee that deals with the Farm Bill, and he's specifically going to be talking about crop insurance and also Title I programs. Second, we're going to be having Stu Swanson to be able to come on and talk a little bit more about the conservation title and CRP. And then last but not least, an important issue, trade and the marketing of our products through the market development programs is going to be led and discussed by Mark Mueller. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I will turn it back over to Mark Recker to kick off our conversation.
Hey, thanks, Mindy. So as she said, I'm Mark Recker. I farm up in Northeast Iowa, up by the town of Oelwein. And I have been part of Iowa Corn for many years and served on several committees. And now I'm serving on the risk management and transportation action team at NCGA. And as Mindy said, our focus on risk management is risk management, crop insurance and Farm Bill and other items that pertain to helping us securely have products that can help us cover risk and help us with risk management on our farms. And it's an exciting time to be on this committee because it's Farm Bill time. It's 5 years are up. And so since 2018, the last Farm Bill, now we're going to try and get one done this year. A couple of the products that we've had as producers to utilize in that Farm Bill, that work I'm talking about, are the Title I products. And that's ARC and PLC that have been part of the Farm Bill since 2014. But usually when we talk about risk management as corn growers, we first look at crop insurance. We talk about crop insurance. That's the most important thing to us on our farms. And we can't have a discussion about risk management without talking about crop insurance. And so to let our members know that is always first and foremost. When we talk to our legislators, when we're discussing this Farm Bill, everybody knows that to a corn producer, crop insurance is the most important item to us, and that we don't want to see cuts. We want to have everyone maintain access for crop insurance. We want a good, sound, financially sound product for us that can help every producer, whatever size their farm is, whatever they're growing, whatever they have, that crop insurance can meet their needs. And that is always priority one for us. But right now, we're working a lot with the new Farm Bill on this Title I with ARC and PLC. And our discussions around that are in 2022, how can we make ARC and PLC more effective? Because right now with corn prices the way they are, it's not a very good safety net. It's way down there. It really won't come into impact. You have to go to your FSA office and tell them which product you want to use for this coming year, either ARC or PLC. And really, it's not a big decision because it probably won't come into play. Go back 5 years and it was a more important decision. There were a higher probability of payouts coming for those. So how do we help our producers out by giving them a product that's a better safety net? Because the likelihood is prices won't stay up here. margins will, or input costs will stay up here longer than prices will, so margins will shrink the next couple of years. So how can we get the ARC and PLC into a position that when those prices drop, that they have, it does the job it's supposed to do and kick in to provide the payments that producers need to help keep profitability, not necessarily profitability, but the ability to keep farming in their operation, that they function like they should. So there's a lot of things with ARC and PLC. When you talk about PLC, reference price is one thing we're talking about. Right now it's $3.70, which is, basically $2.50 to $3 below where we are now. So the discussions go around, do we raise that reference price? That's one thing we talk about. Get it up to a level that will kick in sooner, so it'll help us with risk management on our farms. But there's a lot of moving parts we're talking about. You have benchmark price, which can be adjusted, the escalator, as far as over the course of years, that reference price goes up to help match the market price. Eliminate the data log, because right now it goes basically back 6 years essentially of prices that figures out that average, that Olympic average, and moving that up so it's more current. So there's a lot of discussions we're having. How can NCGA, what's the NCGA be talking about to legislators that we want to see to improve that safety net? And that's what we're considering right now. And there's a lot of things we're talking about as far as base acres. There's a lot of states that would like to see base acres updated. If you're a corn producer from Iowa, it doesn't necessarily work in your favor to have base acres mandatorily updated because that's where most of the payment is for the Iowa corn producer. We would favor voluntary increase of base acres, voluntary updating of base acres. It's something we'd like to see because there are producers that maybe don't have a base on their farm that want to get it in the program. And we think that would be something that we'd be amenable to that. Increasing loan rates. A lot of farmers don't use the loan program, sealing your grain, and some probably still do. But the loan rates are lower, and when you're talking about the high interest rate environment that we're in now, should those be higher so it's a better avenue for a farmer to use to access capital. That's something I think that we need to strongly consider. But at the end of the day, the question is, what will this all cost? When we have these conversations, all these considerations go into what do we think we can get and what will it cost, because other commodities are going to ask for things too. So we need to figure out for corn producers, what gives the most bang for the buck? What can we do? What can we ask for to have the largest impact? Around all this are all the other payments that we've received over the past couple of years, disaster payments, the MFPs, going back to that, COVID payments. Those are all, agriculture's got a lot of payments. Do you consider incorporating those in some way? And how much will that raise the price tag of the farm bill? But for our focus in risk management right now is trying to get the ARC and PLC safety net up to a level so producers can regard it as a good safety net going forward for the years that we know are coming with high input costs and lower prices. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up and I'll turn it over to Stu, I think, who's going to talk about CRP.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. My name's Stu Swanson. I serve as the District 2 Director from North Central Iowa. I farm south to Clarion. I'm also the chair of Iowa Corn's Animal Ag and Environment Committee and have the opportunity to work with the Stewardship Action Team from NCGA. We also have other representatives from Iowa on that stewardship committee too. So lots of good Iowans working on your behalf in Des Moines, in St. Louis, in Washington, D.C., wherever corn growers meet. We're there to work on conservation, sustainability issues, I guess. So Iowa Corn's been working on these kind of issues, sustainability, conservation, carbon for years, but it's also come to the highlight as it's one of the key pillars of our recent strategic plan with the development of a strategic sustainability lab within Iowa Corn. In addition, within the last year or two, it's kind of significantly ramped up because of the injection of private dollars into this arena with the development of carbon trading, and as well as public dollars through several programs, including the Inflation Reduction Act, funding of partnerships for climate smart projects and those kind of things. But I want to hit on some of those. I'll start with the things that Iowa Corn and NCGA are working specifically for the Farm Bill, and then swerve into some of those other topics that we're working on. The first one would be to amend NRCS Conservation Practice Standards Program, allowing for more rapid incorporation of sound innovations to the NRCS programs and projects. There's currently a interim type of a program where practices are evaluated before they reach the full acceptance and allowed to utilize NRCS funds. We would like to address that to try to shorten that time period to allow those new technologies or practices to be utilized quicker. The second thing would be to coordinate a USDA-wide initiative to develop conservation programmings to support voluntary adaptation of practices to reduce and slow down the development of resistant weeds in order to protect farmers' use of conservation tillage and cover crop systems. We want to make sure that we don't eliminate the use of chemicals that we need in order to maintain conservation on the soil. We want to have access to those products that allow us to farm in it the right way and have our conservation plans that match our farms. So those are two things that we're working on, specifically trying to get language inserted into the Farm Bill. Some of the other discussions that we've had within the stewardship team, we've talked about CRP. We have a current cap of 27 million acres in 2023, and currently there's 23 million acres enrolled. And so we have a discussion where the cap needs to be. How do we feel about changes to that, adding more, subtracting where we're at? I think the Iowa Corn's policy currently is that we don't want to increase the cap, and we'd probably be more interested in talking about conservation on working lands rather than taking land out of production. But within that CRP discussion, we've had some concern or discussion about the $50,000 per individual cap on CRP, because that was initiated in 1985 when CRP program started. That cap has never changed, and with the tie to current rental rates based on 85% of the county average, we are seeing some of the acres not being able to be re-enrolled because the individuals are maxing out on that cap. And so do we need to look at a change to those, or do we need to change, have some more flexibility within CRP use, maybe including haying and grazing, more flexibility from the individual states being able to allow that to happen? Other discussion about improvements to mid-contract management of those CRP acres. So, and then finally, we've had some discussion about where we want to be regarding tile drainage and the ability for farmers to continue to utilize that within their farms. So those are some of the things that we are talking about specifically related to the Farm Bill, but we haven't had as much conversation really, Farm Bill related conservation, because there's been so much other things happening in the last year regarding government funding of climate type of programming and projects that we could utilize. One of those is the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed, where $20 billion has been invested to support USDA's conservation programs within NRCS, and it includes $8.45 billion for the EQIP program, nearly $5 billion for regional conservation partnership programs, $3.25 for conservation stewardship program, $1.4 billion for agricultural conservation easement programs, and then another $1 billion for technical service provider assistance, trying to ramp up the expertise of people that can help position these programs on our farm and find the right ones for us. So these are programs that are overprescribed and used by many farmers, and things that you might want to consider going forward, whether that fits within your program. A second round of funds that kind of came to agriculture conservation was partnerships for climate smart commodity grants. And this came out in two funding pools. The first one was for large scale pilot projects to help reduce greenhouse gas there was a total of 450 proposals totaling $20 billion of money, of which 70 of these projects were funded for a total of $2.8 billion. ICGA wrote letters of support for 9 of these projects that we felt matched the goals and the needs of farmers in Iowa. Of those 9 that we wrote letters of support for, 3 were funded. And so those 3 include Farmers for Soil Health, which is a partnership between NCGA, U.S. Soybean, and National Pork Board for $95 million to help double cover crops to 30 million acres by 2030. The second one was Advancing U.S. Pork Sustainability and Market Value. The National Pork Board asked for $20 million to advance climate-smart ag practices within the feed supply. And then the third one that was funded was called Horizon 2, and it was an $80 million grant with Raceline Alternative Energy, and they are going to work to develop a climate-smart future for corn, soybeans, livestock, and renewable gas production. So we have combinations of things that would work for row crop farmers, for livestock producers, and so if there's a potential there that would match what you need on your farm, there's opportunities to find some funding for that too. All of these projects are currently in the process of working with USDA to try to answer questions, finalize their plan of work in hopes of a March 1st deadline to release the funds. So that's another couple of ideas or programs, sources of funds that are available for the farmers. Finally, there at the end of the year, on December 29th, Congress passed the Growing Climate Solutions Act, and this law was, when passed, helps to create a program within USDA to help solve technical service barrier entries for participation in carbon credit markets. So this is an area that farmers have been asking lots of questions about, having lots of concerns, and in most cases probably standing on the sidelines because of concerns about different programs and trying to find the right match. And so with this program, the Secretary of Agriculture is going to establish a certification program for all of the participants within carbon markets. And that includes farmers and landowners and carbon market participants. Within that, in addition, the Secretary is going to establish an advisory council. And on this advisory council, the law requires that it has to have at least 6 active farmers and ranchers on this board. And it also includes representatives from USDA and EPA, other university, carbon trading sector people, non-GMO, NGO, and civil society type groups. So within that 6 farmers, Iowa Corn has already written a letter to the Secretary requesting that Iowa Corn be represented on that board. So I am very proud that our organization has stepped up immediately to ask for representation so that we can be at the table to help protect the needs of what we need as corn growers. So there's lots of opportunities in this arena, lots of confusion. We work every day to try to help answer some of those questions that you have as farmers. And it seems like when we make a little progress, then more confusion comes because of new programs or changes to current programs or those kind of things. So I want to highlight just a couple of things to keep in mind. Kind of the disclaimer always that you have is in these areas because of all the confusion and trying to keep programs that work for farmers. Within all of these, you don't have the ability to double dip on federal dollars. So you need to find the right program the first time around because you can't double dip if there was federal dollars involved. So if you find an EQIP program that's the right one, that might make sense. If you find one of the Growing Climate Solutions projects that has federal dollars attached to it that fits your operation better, you can't do them both. So keep that in mind. Also, one question that we have as our committee meets regularly is, what are the implications of us as farmers selling and trading our credits if in the future we have to prove our own ability to sustainability or conservation practices. So if we take the cash from selling these credits to a third party, what ability do we have going forward to prove that if necessary? And finally, a question that kind of rattles in my mind with all of these funds that have been injected into agriculture, into conservation, is I really think everybody has to be encouraged to participate in some program in some fashion, because what happens to agriculture, what happens to Iowa corn if these voluntary programs with these large levels of funding and cost shares don't reach the required or the desired outcomes? Where does that position us as agriculture if we can't meet the goals of what these programs are with an unlimited resources that might be available in some of these funds? So those are some of my thoughts from the conservation side. I do want to offer up one part for information to help you understand what's going on in this arena. And it's a website called Decode 6. So 6 is the elemental number for carbon. So it's Decode, DECODE 6, the number 6.org. And it's a website that's been put together by the American Society of Agronomy, Crop Science Society of America, and Soil Science Society of America. But this website has lots of valuable information on lots of different parts of the carbon issue, on conservation programming, and specifically in carbon market and carbon trading. So lots of quick educational things that can be reached through that website that might give you a better understanding of how fast this is changing and all of the items that are going on in this conservation carbon market. So again, my honor to work on your behalf in these issues. We have a great team on the Animal Ag and Environment Committee and on the stewardship team that take these issues very seriously and thinking about how they might impact Iowa corn growers or corn growers across the country. So again, thank you for that opportunity to work for you. And I guess it's my chance to pass it off to Mark Mueller, who's going to talk about some trade issues from his perspective.
Thank you very much, Stu. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce, this is an announcement for the viewers at home, the members of District 3 in Northeast Iowa. I would like to introduce Nolan Linus.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Mark, for the introduction. I just wanted to jump on and introduce myself. My name is Nolan Linus, and I'm the new district field manager up here in District 3. So I look forward to working with everybody here and wrapping up my first week here with Iowa Corn. So thank you.
That's correct. It's his first week. He's met me and he hasn't quit yet. So this is a good sign. He'll be around for the long term. I am a director from District 3, Northeast Iowa, for the Iowa Corn Growers Association. I have served for a few years on the Exports and Grain Trade Committee for Iowa Corn and am the current co-chair, vice chair. I also am a director at large for the U.S. Grains Council. And the U.S. Grains Council handles a lot of issues and gets a lot of its funding through MAP and FMD. Those are the things I'm going to be talking about. MAP and FMD. MAP is Market Access Program. FMD is Foreign Market Development. These are administered through the latest Farm Bill. And they also, well, a quick breakdown is that MAP, which is roughly about $200+ million a year, and FMD, which is approximately $35 million a year, are used to promote market access, to fight trade barriers, to improve processing capabilities in other countries, to set grading standards for products. And when I say that between the two of them, we're talking about roughly $240 million a year. That is not all towards corn. That is not necessarily all towards grain. In fact, if you went to MAP funding, it's split between probably 75 different organizations that range everywhere from the National Popcorn Board to sun-kissed growers to the American Peanut Council to a number of things, the Mohair Council of America, the Leather and Hide Council. Of this annual amount, we get roughly 20%. And when I say we, I'm talking about including soybeans, the North American Grain Export Association, the American Soybean Association, the U.S. Grains Council, which is where I come in, U.S. Dairy Export Council, the U.S. Meat Export Federation, and USAPEC, which is Poultry and Egg Export Council. So roughly 20% of that 175 million, including soybeans, comes from MAP funding. Regarding the Foreign Market Development, FMD, that includes U.S. Dairy Council, the U.S. Grains Council, U.S. Meat Export Federation, the U.S. Poultry and Egg Council, and the American Soybean Association. We get a bigger percentage of that, about 47%, but it's a much smaller number. About $27 million total. We get about 13 million of that. It's a number that has been static since the mid 2000s. I think FMD has not changed since 2006, and MAP funding has not changed since 2002. So that means that what was roughly $200 million per year of allocated money in 2006, when you take into account budget sequestration, which takes 10% off the top, and you take out inflation, that 200 million is worth less than 160 million now. And the same goes for FMD. So yesterday I called the ag attaches of 3 different representatives and one senator. I talked with Josh Millard, who works for Randy Feenstra. I talked to Nick Lunenborg, who works for Michelle, Minnesota Representative Fischbach. And they both said that it's very early in the process, but they are aware, this is the most important thing, they are aware of the bang for the buck that comes back from allocating money to these programs. There was a University of Texas study that said there's roughly a 9 to 10 to 1 return. For every $9 or $10 spent, or I'm sorry, every dollar spent, we get roughly 9 or 10 back. So I know that the money that goes through U.S. Grains, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong numbers. $90 to $100 come back for every dollar that's spent. I know for a fact that what goes to the U.S. Grains Council has a payback of roughly 25 to 27 to 1. The representatives on Capitol Hill and the senators are aware of what a great deal this is. It's a good place to put our money if we can get a return back like that. So the problem is that the amount of money that's going to be arranged is going to be pretty much unchanged. They're looking for more, but they're pretty much saying you're going to have the same amount of money to work with. How are you going to allocate it? And inflation has been putting pressure to increase funding for food nutrition, the SNAP program. So SNAP, which is already 80% of the farm bill, roughly, somebody can correct me on that, has got even more pressure to have an increase because inflation is affecting food. And this is a very emotional subject. Let's face it, the number of corn growers and the number of agriculture in the room is a lot smaller than the number of representatives that take care of urban areas. We're going to have our work cut out for us to try and get any increase at all. I don't think we'll see a decrease. The one thing in our favor is that representatives and senators are well aware of the payback of these dollars, what goes to MAP and FMD. I did speak with Dustin Vanderhoef, who works for Joni Ernst yesterday. And he brought up the fact that Joni Ernst last September had brought up a bill, a bipartisan bill, that was introduced to double the funding for both MAP and FMD. That would be great. And he talked at length about the payback on that. Some of the quotes he had, which I wrote down, were that they doubled this to put MAP and FMD on folks' radar for the next farm bill. The fact that it was a bipartisan thing introduced by Democrats and senators, or Democrats and Republicans, is very good. But they recognize the payback, but at the same time, you also said we're going to be scrounging for dollars, and we're going to have to be working. All the other programs are going to need money, but especially SNAP. So that's going to be the big challenge. If we want to get more money from this, we're going to have to we're probably going to be working against public opinion. When they say get more money for SNAP, we're not certain how that's going to work very easily. They're aware of it. And I think the fact that there's a good payback is what's in our favor. I apologize for any rambling there. But these are programs that through the U.S. Grains Council, we get a lot of access. And once again, it's not that much money when you compare. The nation of France spends $1 billion a year just to promote wine, and we have roughly 70 different organizations that use our, 1/4 that much money. So we are not pushing very hard in selling our products. I guess this is where I get a little bit preachy, and I'm sorry for that, but agriculture depends on global access to markets. We more so than just about any other country. And globalization is collapsing. It's been ignored for the last 15 years. And as countries become more protectionist and they throw out more tariffs, we're having to go out there and fight more and more little battles, put out fires, try and nip these tariff squabbles in the bud before they start creating more headaches down the road. So this money is important to us. It's used to promote our products as well as others. And we're doing a lot with not very much. Like I said, the U.S. Grains Council, of which Iowa Corn is a contributor, gets a payback of roughly 25-1. That's pretty good business anywhere. I have nothing else to add to that, but all of us will take questions. And Mindy, I think it's back to you.
I can step in too. I'm not sure if Mindy, I know she's at a crop fair. So I'm Shannon Textor with Iowa Corn. I'm the VP of Communications. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to give a shout out to Central Community School District. Mrs. Bond's class is joining us today, and we're happy to have your ag business class joining us. So thank you all for sharing your insights with us and the work of Iowa Corn, that it wouldn't be possible without our members. We would like to open it up to questions. So if anyone has any questions, if you want to raise your hand, we'll be able to see that and call on you. Otherwise, you may type it into the chat box. We did have 2 questions that came in that from our newsletter when we put it out. And I'm thinking either Kevin or Mindy may know the answer to this one, but how much carbon sequestration policy will be included in the next farm bill is one of those questions. I don't know if you'd like to take a shot at that.
Yeah, I can try to take a shot at that. As you may know, the Inflation Reduction Act was recently passed, and it did include a lot of policies related to carbon and conservation in it already. So I do not expect that to be the major focus of the Farm Bill, because our members of Congress have already just recently dealt with that. But because carbon is such an important topic in the world today, I do think that it will be part of the discussion, but maybe not the overwhelming discussion in this Farm Bill. If anybody has other comments, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, obviously, many of the programs that Stu mentioned, carbon is definitely part of the work that Iowa Corn Growers Association is doing on your behalf, and along with NCGA. And it is a topic that we're all working on, and making sure that it comes out to the best for long-term profitability for Iowa's corn growers. The other question that I do have, I don't see anyone raising hands. I'm surprised by some of these folks are not raising their hand, to be honest, that I see on our list. So we encourage you to ask any questions here. This is your time that we just want to open it up. And if you do have anything that you'd like to chat today about the Farm Bill, or if there are other topics, we're happy to address that as well. The other one that we have, oh, I just have one come in. From Tim Burke, any plans in the Farm Bill to counter Brazil's rapid increase in corn and soy production and increasing their world market share at our expense?
So go ahead, Mark.
Tim, this is Mark Mueller, and I don't believe I really don't know much of the details yet, but we are supposed to be the leader of free trade across the world, and yet it would be opposite of our intentions to start throwing up barriers. And yet I think we're starting to do that. I don't know, it's spreading around the world, but when we start saying that we have to move companies here, not necessarily agriculture, but when we start saying we're going to start restricting trade and try to do everything within our own borders, that's not a good signal to send for the supposed leader of free trade around the world. I told you, I think free trade is in retreat. I think democracy is in retreat in a lot of parts of the world, and yet we know that free trade brings prosperity. With prosperity comes increased wealth, democracy. I haven't got an answer for you, Tim, but I don't believe there's anything in the Farm Bill. I haven't heard of anything that says we're going to be trying to restrict Brazil's rapid increase. That's the free market that's causing.
Right. I would agree, Mark. I don't think that there'll be anything in the Farm Bill, but the best thing that we can do is to provide a 5-year or more or less, but 5 years of consistent knowledge by farmers of what their program is, and to provide the best safety net that we can provide so that all of you can be as competitive as you can be.
Hey, Tim. This is Kevin. I think one of the things that we should pride ourselves on as the association here for our listeners and our members is our bipartisan work that we do, and probably the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed with Iowa Corn support, who pressured many of our elected officials to take a very hard vote under very hard budget concerns in the Congress. And I want to give a huge shout out to the members that stepped up and took that hard vote, because the infrastructure, as you know, Tim, is what's going to keep us competitive with Brazil. That is where the rubber will meet the road in our locks and our dams, our railway, our trucking, our bridges, because yes, you're right. They can raise a heck of a lot of corn and soybeans down in Brazil. It's expanded acres, but are they going to be able to get it to market? And you might counter me and say, Kev, they're building down there. They're on the move. But I'll put us against them any day of the week when it comes to infrastructure. So that's just me. I know my patriotic roots are showing a little bit there, but I hope that was helpful.
We have another question that has been drafted from Kelly. Since ag is more and more involved in energy, will there be any more focus on the energy title in the Farm Bill? This one might be one for Kevin.
Yes. And Kelly, I think we are going to answer our question right there through our leadership here at Iowa Corn and our members. We're going to make sure that Congress keeps this on their radar, as like we have been doing on keeping the ethanol issues on their radar. When we were in DC this just past week, we were talking about ethanol and the importance of biofuels in this economy, and biofuels for that matter around the world. So and I even believe that newly elected Congressman Zach Nunn, who got on the Ag Committee, was talking about energy independence. And I believe this is all going to come into play within the Farm Bill, Kelly, and have an important role. So hopefully that was helpful.
So one of the other questions that came in off of our line is not related to the Farm Bill, but is about EVs and asking if they pay road use taxes.
Okay, I can take this one. The short answer is no. EVs do not pay the same per gallon or per mile road use tax that motor vehicles with liquid fuel do. In our state of Iowa, we have attempted, and it has become law, that they do pay a little bit more in their purchase fees as well as their annual registration fees, but that does not apply to every state. And it is not, I don't think, equal to the same amounts. And certainly Iowa corn growers care very deeply about our infrastructure. So we will definitely be interested in maintaining and improving our roads in the future.
Are there any other questions? We'll give it a minute.
This is Tim Burak. Can you hear me?
We can, Tim.
Thank you. I've been trying to type and I have done poorly. I've got to respond back to Kevin's remarks and Mark. I think I was misunderstood. Brazil's expanding at 6% per year now. The large grain companies are making whatever investments necessary to build out their port infrastructure to handle the expansion. And pretty soon they'll be the #1 corn exporter in the world, taking that from us. And though Kevin thinks that that's not possible, 20 years ago, people didn't believe it could be possible in soybeans. The question then is for Mark and any of you is, shouldn't there be some focus? And MAP and FMD are great, but if that's where we got to go, then we've really got to ramp that up. And I know Mark pointed that out, but I'm afraid everything is woefully inadequate from what I've heard here. We're so focused on internal that we're missing the external. And I just think we've got to be very aware that we're losing market share. Now I know the Mississippi River low water this year did not help at all, but we've been losing market share for years. And I'm just very concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Looks like we don't have any other questions at this time. So I'm going to kick it over to Carrie Dodds. And if any other questions come in the meantime, we will do our best to answer those. We are planning to post this recording on our website and share it out with our members. We did this last year or maybe the year before during COVID and had quite a few members log in and listen to the presentation. So hopefully we'll get a similar response this time, but we appreciate all of you taking your time to join us today. Also, we are asking anytime you have questions that you would like answered, we would be happy to take those in the Insider or give any of us a call. Your district field managers are actually out in the countryside as apparent by Janelle's crop fair today. But I'm going to turn it over to Carrie to wrap us up. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. As Shannon mentioned, I'm Carrie Dodds. I'm the Vice President of Grower Development at Iowa Corn. I want to take a minute to thank Mark, Stu, and Mark, and all of our other farmer leaders that are doing the good work and these important issues, and it really showcases the value of your membership at Iowa Corn. Thank you to all of you who tuned in today. One big thing that we're doing right now is trying to get everyone's email addresses. We have a weekly newsletter that Shannon has mentioned a few times, the Insider. It's a great way to get our communication in the most current up to date. So if you do not have your email address listed in your membership, please reach out to us or your district field manager that Shannon mentioned, and they can help you. Our last plug is for our Day on the Hill on March 29th. An invitation will be coming out. Please don't hesitate to join us or ask any questions, as you telling your story is the strongest advocate we can have. Any last questions? All right. Well, again, thank you all for tuning in, and this will be recorded. Have a great afternoon, everyone.